Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Metamorphosis podcast. My name is Milan. I'm the one running this show. I've moved to my new apartment and I'm quite enjoying it. I can tell you that. I'm extremely grateful for that. But that is not what is important right now. Right now, we speak about freedom of speech. And we speak about what the hell is going on in the world and why do people who keep speaking the truth, telling the truth, keep being cancelled? And why do they keep being restricted basic freedoms such as financial freedom and similar? And the examples I'm currently speaking about are people such as Kanye West, Andrew Tate, people that you have also been hearing being constantly or silently undetectably cancelled and whose bank accounts have been seized and whose financial assets have been taken away. And I'm not here defending any of these people. You need to understand that this is an extremely, extremely serious issue. We live in an increasingly capitalist world, which means we are increasingly dependent on money. Due to the digitalization of money, and us, I wouldn't even say slowly at this point, us very quickly switching to a centralized digital banking currency, which is a topic in and of itself, because there's consequences to that that we can't even see coming right now, that I hope people can see. Due to all this happening, our identities are tied to our bank accounts, courtesy of central banks and courtesy of advancement, quote unquote, of technology, and people's lack of awareness towards what this actually means. So unless you conform to a certain mainstream narrative, you are clearly viable to be cancelled. That seems to be the most popular word nowadays. And it seems to me that people are just completely oblivious to this because, as always, it hasn't happened to them, or at least not yet. And you can only understand reality to the depth to which you can perceive yourself and your own experience. Now, without me going too spiritual into this yet, I'm simply going to tell you that whatever your opinion is on any of these people, Andrew Tate, Kanye West, it does not matter because you're focusing on the wrong aspect of the scale. You're focusing on a completely wrong end. You are not focusing on the problem. You're focusing on the person. In the same way as if I were to say something that you don't like, you would be focusing on me saying it instead of what was said, why it has been said, and what is the deeper issue, and of course stemming from your desire to understand it. But that is not what is happening. And as people, we do not have still the sufficient capacity to sit with each other, have open dialogues, and understand deeper issue, because the media knows this very, very well, and people in power know this very well too. And you need to be kept fed with bite-sized pieces because your attention has been so significantly lowered that you're not even aware that you cannot keep conscious attention for longer than 5 minutes, focusing on one particular activity, on one particular topic or subject, which is probably why your life, most likely, I don't wish that for you, but your life is most likely in shambles because you literally cannot focus on it enough to actually analyze what it's about, what it needs, what it doesn't need, for you to make significant changes and to essentially make those important steps towards freeing yourself from whatever it is that is troubling you. And guess what? That thing is most likely you holding yourself back, not allowing yourself to express yourself authentically and fully, to tell the truth, because you know deep inside that there are consequences to doing that. And you are deeply conditioned to predict those consequences, project them as de facto reality by holding yourself back, by acting out of fear instead of courage, love, and whatnot. And I'm no guru or like a success motivator, but I'm telling you that as someone who has been through this and is still going through this, like overcoming fear, increasing vibration, and all these things, you have to figure this out for your own. It's not sufficient for me to tell you, hey, are you being aware that people such as Andrew Tate and Kanye West, regardless of what they have said, mind you, that they are being silenced, that their financial assets have been taken away, which, by the way, why is this so important? Why do I keep mentioning this? Because if you take someone's money away from them, that means death in modern society. Because we have lost community due to putting so much trust into state, into this, Papa Staten, as they say in Sweden. Because I live in Sweden, people here are fucking insane because they have no sense of community. There is no strong sense of community. Everyone wants to be independent. And again, I'm not here to say that that is good or bad, right or wrong. I'm simply saying that as a consequence of the state being given so much power by nothing but choice of the people, so voluntary choice, people have become discouraged to seek, form, and maintain communities that can actually provide them with the same, if not better, and I think better, resources than the state. Because the state always has conditions that you need to fulfill as an individual, then dependent maybe on your personal, intimate context and whatnot. If you are a part of a community, a genuine tribe in a community, this would not have been required of you because your survivability, your quote-unquote success would be dependent explicitly and especially from nothing else but how well you maintain the quality and quality, I think I said that twice, of that tribe, of that community. If you're a valued member of that community and you contribute to it being alive, being self-sustaining, everyone else benefits from it, as do you in return, because people do things for you because they care for you and they want you in that community, things would have been completely different. You would not have to go ask money from the state, for example, for a loan. You can ask it from a friend of yours who has, for example, let's say monetary power, who is a powerful friend because of money. You would not have to go and work for 20 years in order to accrue enough credit to ask for a loan. And this is a debt-based economy anyway. So you're dooming yourself to a lifetime of debt if you want to, for example, buy a house. Because that's no freedom, my friend. If you think you are free, that if you go to a bank and get a loan that you actually can't pay off, let's be real, let's be completely realistic here. If you go to the bank and want a loan, unless you can pay off that loan within the next year, you're binding yourself to a probable lifetime of slavery, maybe like 10, 20 years tops, 20 mostly. Because now you have to work in order to pay that loan off. And that is how a society of slaves is created. And I'm sure you know this already. And I'm not here pointing fingers at you listening or watching to this or anyone else who is doing a 9-to-5 job and, doing corporate work or whatnot. I've checked out of that 2 years ago and I've been nothing but grateful for that. That doesn't make me better than anyone else. That doesn't make me more successful than anyone else. It simply makes me fulfilled and happy that I'm responsible for my own destiny, money, life, career, call it whatever. And guess what? The state doesn't like that. Because now they want to know, how are you making your money? How is then this possible? And the reason they need to know this is so that they can restrict that, find way to tax it, find ways to limit your financial freedom so that the state can still make money while you're making money. And again, and I want you to remember this, because I'm sharing this with you wholeheartedly and with the best possible intention. There is always a loophole in the system. And you're not an evil person if you find that loophole and you profit and benefit from it. You are not. Because you are not harming the system or anyone. As a matter of fact, you could be helping people, freeing themselves from the slavery of this imaginary authority that we call state, that we call whatever. Put any name in front of any authority that you recognize. Maybe I don't. For me, there is no authority other than my own. And when you realize how deeply conditioned you are to believe certain things that are absolutely not true because you've never questioned them on your own, you have never delved deep enough into understanding, what does financial freedom actually entail? What does being free actually mean? It doesn't mean having money, clearly, because if that were the case, people such as Kanye West and Andrew Tate would not have been ranting all over the internet to defend that same money. Because money is clearly not the answer. Don't get me wrong, it's very good to have money. It's better to have it than not. But the ways in which we make money and how we treat each other because of money, I believe matters a lot as well. We cannot pretend that we are not tied, united as people, and we cannot allow ourselves and each other to compete with each other endlessly for the resources that we share on the same planet. Now, I know this might be a far cry from reality and a definitely far stretch from where we are right now. But unless we think that it's possible for us to live in peace and not war with one another, constantly competing through job interviews, through hierarchical separation and division. Again, hierarchies do exist. They're part of nature. But we are humans, and we are not simply tournament species. We're also pair bonding species. We're much more. We can transcend our nature. We can overcome our nature. And thus, that being nature in and of itself, that being evolution, a next evolutionary step, we can overcome the conditions we are subjected to, and we can allow those conditions to transform us in ways unimaginable. But we are limited by our imagination because we have been so conditioned to believe that we are only limited to certain boundaries or extents of our reach, which is again dictated and limited by someone else, by something else, by external authority. You have a voice as a human being, as a sentient, independent human being. And your voice is the most powerful thing in this world, because it is that same voice that can sit down and write a book, explore an idea, spread that idea, and increase awareness of it. Most people today do not have 30 minutes of their time to commit to something meaningful, because they cannot even recognize what something what something meaningful is to them. And it pains me to see this. It is so painful to walk around. I live in Malmö in Sweden. It is painful to watch people rushing all the time, mindlessly, to work, to home, to the next task, to the next obligation, to the next thing. And believe me, I know life is hard. I'm not pointing fingers at anything or anyone. I know life is hard. But you make the choice of how you live your life. If you choose to rush 24/7, 7 days a week, 4 weeks a month, 12 months a year, you are condemning yourself actively to a lifetime of suffering. Because you're rushing to nowhere else but your grave. You're going to die, my friend. You're going to die as anyone else will, as anyone who has ever lived before you has. But what you do with your life is that matters. And when I say what you do with your life, I don't mean, do something meaningful. That's a completely, again, different topic and industry that is leeching off of people's ambition and desire to succeed. I mean, how do you live your life today, daily? How do you speak to people who are in your life? Are you mindful and conscious of your environment and setting and who you are as an individual, as a person. Are you aware of how you've changed from the first day that you remember of your conscious life, the first image, until this very day? What has changed? What is different? Can you approach this moment with complete and total awareness instead of a narrative and judgment? Can you do something with your life that will make it worthwhile in this one day, so that you can say, hey, everything else in the past disappears today? I don't mean saying that you should neglect the past. You should learn from it. But for how long are you going to let the past drag alongside you? How long are you going to drag past you alongside you before you let go and become who you were always meant to become? And I'm not trying to be one of those people who are like pseudo motivators and tell you what you should be doing, because I don't have the answer to that question. And anyone who says that they have the answer to that question are either trying to take your money, or they have their own benefit from you doing a certain thing. And that's something, again, that you have to figure out on your own, because you are on your own. We have relationships. We have each other as humans. We thrive from meaningful contact and relationships. But our identity is constantly shifting and changing. You cannot hold on to a single event and let that be the defining factor of your identity, be it good or bad. And believe me, many people do that, and many so-called successful people do the same thing. They identify as rich people, as poor people, as certain way, and then what they do is they simply enact themselves to play that role because that role feels good. And at the end of the day, we can easily say that it is about emotion. It is about how we feel about ourselves. And no, this is not a feminine aspect of interpretation of reality. Yes, I'm a guy, I have long hair, whatever. I'm in a robe doing this podcast. But both men and women exhibit and experience reality. Now, how we experience it is different. I do not think that men and women experience emotion very differently, but we do experience it in different channels and through different means. That is not the point of this topic, though, of today's topic. What I'm trying to say to you is, whenever you see a so-called celebrity, someone famous, something bad happening to them by the state, them being silenced by their colleagues, but them being ostracized, isolated, and then them starting to engage in something of their own making, rest assured that it is worth exploring, not into the person. Because what I say, for example, Kanye West says, Andrew Tate, whoever, just put a random name. You need to see what's underneath all that. You need to see what the fundamental problem is, regardless of what your personal opinion is, which, with all due respect, does not matter as much as you think it does. What matters is acting collectively, and I know this is a far cry from current reality for most people, but bear with me on this one. What matters is collective action towards improving this world. And even saying that now sounds corny, because when people say that, when people say, oh, I'm an altruist, I help the world, it is exactly those kinds of people that we don't believe, that we believe the least. And that is why the only thing I believe you can do as a decent human being is take care of yourself for yourself. Take care of how you act in the world, how you behave and look in the world, treat other people authentically, mindfully. I mean, of course, if someone crosses a line, you act accordingly. If someone offends you, you act accordingly. You do what is in your nature and you learn from your own behavior. You learn what makes you feel good, what makes you feel bad. You are your greatest project, not your boss, not your salary, not your 9-to-5, probably meaningless job. It is what you do in every living moment and becoming just increasingly aware of what that is. Not just disappearing into ether and spontaneously combusting or whatnot. Just being aware of where you are, who you truly are, not the labels, not the fancy suits, shoes, robes, long hair, beard, whatever. You're much more than that. You cannot be defined or confined. Yet everyone who wants to control you will try to do exactly that. You will be given a name, you will be given a number, you will be given an incentive to underperform, you will be given a directive, and your future will already be predetermined for you. If you allow this to happen, you are already dead. You're already dead without even knowing this. And I'm not the one who is supposed to be telling you that. You should be figuring that out on your own. If you do not like me for saying this, that is completely understandable. Completely understandable. Because this is not easy to hear. And if you're watching me on YouTube, it probably isn't easy to watch either. Because, again, it's not easy to speak about living the good life when I live a good life, when I see people around me not living a good life, because I cannot possibly consider myself happy, and I don't mean this in a selfish way, but one cannot possibly be happy if they are surrounded by people who suffer. I think it is David Attenborough who said that a species cannot thrive unless all of its living members thrive. And I believe that to be incredibly true. That if we walk about and go about our daily lives, say we are fulfilled and happy, we have quote unquote everything we want and need, and we know our neighbor is suffering, we know our neighbor is dying, we know a family member or a friend is in pain and in peril, we know that there are hideous things happening in the world, then how can we look at ourselves and each other in the eyes and say, I'm okay, I'm celebrating today. Yeah, I'm just gonna pause what's going on in the world, all the suffering and manipulation and awful things happening, and I'm just gonna focus on the good. And again, I'm not gonna argue whether you should do that or not. That is ultimately your choice, and you live your life in the way you find fit. But don't you think you should integrate the two? Don't you think that these two are coexisting simultaneously all the time, no matter what you do, no matter what you say, no matter where you are in life and who you are? And you just have to see reality for what it is in its totality. You cannot pretend that things don't matter because you decide they don't matter. We are constantly being fragmented as a society exactly because of such things. Malmö, where I live in Sweden, is such a divided city that people are literally more willing to ostracize and isolate themselves and each other and not deal with the deeper problem, and just walk about their daily lives in the street, ignoring each other. I'm grateful to be here, don't get me wrong. I'm grateful to my ex-girlfriend Alex for bringing me here and all the opportunities. At the same time, I've never seen a more internally divided society. And I mean internally as in within people within themselves, just walking away from problems, not speaking up. The government, so-called government, makes decisions without even consulting with its citizens, and people just accept. And that has been the case for years now, since I've come here to Sweden. Children, young women are encouraged to be subjected to all kinds of treatments to reduce and minimize the possibility of pregnancy, thus seriously harming their own health and well-being. I'm not advocating for or against. I care about the health of the individual. And not to mention the encouragement of gender dysphoria and dysmorphia, the mutilation of people based on simply their beliefs that they are something that they're not. And all these things are encouraged because there is no critique, there is no criticism. Because when we focus so much on the positive, and when we say that, oh, everything is good as it is, and we don't go deeper into trying to understand what that is, not attacking it, just trying to understand what is going on, we get a fragmented society. We get a fragmented self, because the self cannot be safe in that kind of society either. So then we have societies of profoundly unsafe people to be around. I'm not saying myself to be that person, but I'm speaking in general terms. And there's so much that can be done about that, yet we are only focused on ourselves. And we cannot see further than ourselves because we are kept in that loop by others, and we keep ourselves in that loop too. I hope that you can see this for yourselves. I hope that this is something that genuinely reaches you, that you can understand what I'm talking about. And if you cannot, please ask me, because I will very happily explain. And if you wish to discuss these things, you're welcome on my podcast. This podcast exists for the sake of discussing important things, understanding reality, understanding life, societies, each other, ourselves. Change, evolution, metamorphosis, as the very name indicates. And I want people to really take this seriously, as they themselves would like to be taken, which is when you speak, does someone really truly listen, or they just brush you off? When you speak, do you want to be heard? Do you think your ideas matter? And have you invested enough time to brush and polish these ideas so that you can present them to the world, so that the world can actually listen to you? These are all things that are your, and I'm going to use this word very carefully, burden. This is your burden of existence. And if you just sit around and let the world crumble underneath your feet, you're going to perish too. And we need to act. We need to act together. We need to recognize the problems and issues and speak about them, because sometimes, and in most of the cases, the conversation about the problem and the understanding of the problem is the very solution to the problem. Not all these things that we constantly keep fragmenting our world and societies with, like technology, technological advancement, although I'm really supportive of technology when it's being used for good terms, for good reasons. Not branching the issue constantly, inventing new businesses, new solutions, new supplies, new companies, just growing industrially. No, connecting to each other on top of that and building in unison. Not separating ourselves from anything or anyone, but coming united. I genuinely hope that you can understand what I'm referring to when I say that. And if you cannot, please ask, and let's have a discussion about it. Not me explaining to you what that is. I don't like doing that, because I don't think I know anything. We discovered that together, because if something makes sense to me, I would really like it to make sense to you too, so that we can be on the same page, and maybe me learn something from you too. So please tell me your opinions, comment on this, do like and subscribe if you feel like it, if you're watching me on YouTube. Let this message reach people, because I believe this to be genuinely important with all my heart, and that is why I'm doing this, and I hope that you can see that. If you can't, that's fine. But thank you for your time, genuinely thank you for your time. And by the way, this is my 21st podcast, and I looked at somewhere on TikTok, there was a guy who said that 80% of TikToks, 80% of podcasts don't make it to 21st episode, which means that I'm officially in 20% of podcasts that are going to make it. And I'm extremely happy for that. And I want to share that happiness right now, because I'm really, really excited. Thank you. Thank you for listening to this and being here, being with me, us together doing this. And take care of yourselves and each other. I think that's the most important thing. Bye.